We're ready to start.
Okay.
All right.
Hello, Obal, by the way.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Vinod. Hi, Tom.
Great to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi.
I'm JC Alvarez. I'm narrative designer. I'm head of lore for Dragonbond, which is a fantasy setting with dragons and bonds. It's the brainchild of Daniel Cerviche, president of Draco Studios, a fantasy setting created in Mexico for the world. And I have the great honor of introducing to you Tom Babi, the illustrator of our Dragons of the Red Moon line.
Hello.
And now art director for Dragonbond, Steve Prescott, who made the concept art for characters and units of our two main armies, Solaria and Tiberia.
Hello.
And Vinod Rams, who is also a concept artist for Sicaria, our monster field realm of the North Sea. All of them with a great trajectory in the industry, including Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast. So I couldn't be happier out sharing a panel with these amazingly talented people. So I'm gonna let them speak to each other and pantomime Steve. No?
We'll start and end with that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I guess I'll take it from here. I kind of segue into the art a little bit, world building and all that fun stuff. So as JC mentioned, I'm Tom Babi, the art director for the Dragonbond setting for Draco Games, Draco Studios, and I've been doing a lot of work here with these two awesome guys, Steve and Vin. We've been working hard at kind of bringing this entire world to life and kind of figuring out how these cultures and all look, how they work in the world, how they interact with each other. We think about those things as we're creating this artwork, because all of that helps set these visual tones and helps set each of these settings, each of these factions, each of these areas in the setting apart from one another. So yeah, I guess to start, I'm not sure how to kind of kick it off necessarily. Like maybe we should just start talking a little bit about how that the concept process actually works and how it begins. So essentially the way it goes, I get a write up from JC and his team. Essentially, they kind of figure out the storyline of Dragonbond, about the setting and all, figure out the regions and the lore and everything, and then they get that information to me. At which point, I kind of go over it with not necessarily a fine-tooth comb per se, but I go over it and kind of pick out the details that I kind of dig, the areas that I think we can kind of extrapolate upon, the things that I think if that could form really cool visual motifs, you know, try to pick out certain key areas here and there, and then we kind of
that part of the process. That part of the process, you know, the moment of making the transition from imagination, from fantasy to art to fantasy.
Yeah, it's that's probably the most exciting part of the process for me, personally. Figuring out how to make ideas on a page, words on a page, into something more than that. And it's different from illustration too. You know, with illustration, you're usually dealing with already established characters, already established IPs, and you're telling a story in one image. Here, we're creating the setting to tell those stories in. So we're trying to figure out what the visual indicators for each of these areas are. Steve joined me. He was kind of the first dude who, the first artist who hopped on and kind of helped out with the Draco setting. So Steve kind of has left a very big footprint on that setting. We started off with the two factions that you can kind of see on the Kickstarter right now. The Battles of Valerna Kickstarter is running right now, and the two factions that are in there are the two that Steve and I started with, Alaria and Tyveria. So Alaria is this region of Eastern-inspired elven elven kingdom. It's an Eastern-inspired elven kingdom with a lot of different other peoples in there. Steve, did you want to? Steve, let's bring you in here to chat a little bit about Ilaria too,
Sure.
and kind of how that design process started.
I can't remember. Did you hand me the elves or the gnomes first, or maybe both at the same time?
Yeah, I think it was the elves and gnomes at the same time.
Yeah. But I remember it was really loose when you handed over some notes. The elves kind of have a vaguely ancient Chinese or Mongolian look, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, that's room to try out some stuff. And I always try to take what the usual tropes are and try to eliminate ones that might seem like they're overplayed, like the elves wearing leaf armor. That's been done a million times. So I really wanted to stay away from that as much as possible. And also, you want to stick with certain stuff for the elves. Like, you can't have elves with just regular ears. They have to have some kind of ears that are, evocative elves. So I just kind of jumped off from there. And it was interesting. I'd never done, kind of a Chinese or Mongolian armor look on elves before. So that right there was a good jumping off point for working out, what's a good shape language, visual language to carry over through armor and the various, positions in the elves. So that was fun to just have room to play around. And I remember back and forth with you, just with some sketches before we got into final drawings. What if the elves had these shorter ears with a curve on it? And what if the elves were what if they were, because you didn't mention if they were humans or not. I was like, what if these elves aren't just Caucasians that have pointy ears? What if they kind of represent the humans and they have a broad ethnicity? There's, Asian looking elves, and there's also, African looking elves. And so we really played around with kind of replacing the human component with the elves in this, I think. It was fun.
You made a couple of really good points there too. Just in passing comments there. There's two aspects of what you just said that kind of stick out to me, and one of it is you wanted to avoid those leaf motifs. You wanted to avoid the arbor elves because that's done to death. Everybody's seen that 100 times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you mentioned, there's aspects that you need to embrace, that you need to anchor onto. Like you mentioned, the point of ears and everything like that. And I think that's something about concept design that a lot of people don't quite realize, that we need to push ahead into new uncharted territories and kind of explore unexplored aspects of these creatures and these characters and these peoples. But at the same time, we need to balance that with the respect for kind of what came before that and kind of anchor that a little bit, And I think that you did, just you and Vin both. So Vinod also tackled a bunch of elves for us for Draco. Steve's elves are live on the land. Like I mentioned, they live on an empire. So let's go ahead and actually share some of your elves here, Steve. Because why not?
Yeah, you got it ready.
Did you bring an elf for everyone?
I did. One for you. Get an elf.
You got enough to share with the whole class?
You get an elf.
Now take one elf and pass it down, please. Don't.
One elf each, students. Come on now. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to share the Oath Guard leader here. Oh, really? Of course.
That's something that was
disclosure on Tom password again.
Do it.
So y'all get to see my password and login info again. That's super fun.
Well, you're going to get a lot of emails right now, Tom. Tom's going to get a lot of emails.
Great. Fun times. Here we go.
Yay.
So this is one of the elves that Steve tackled for us. This is the Oath Guard captain here, and you can kind of see exactly what Steve was talking about with this, where we approached this early on and decided very early on in the design process. I remember, Steve. I remember it was just this quick back and forth text that we had between each other, where I think you texted me and you said, "Hey, just straight Caucasian elves are boring, right?" And I said, "Yeah, let's not do that." And you're like, "Cool, that's what I was hoping for." And that was it. That was as in depth as we kind of had with the conversation. It was just this acknowledgement that no, we're not going to do that. and we just ran ahead with like what Steve was saying, using all different kinds of ethnicities and face types and everything with the elves, because that's what we're building with this setting. It's an inclusive setting. It's a diverse setting, and we don't want it to be boring. We don't want it to be what you've seen before. You know, everybody's seen blonde hair, pointed eared Orlando Bloom elf, and that's tired to us. So we're trying something out that's a little bit different here. So as I mentioned, you know, we got Steve's here, but we have these super rad ones from Vinod as well.
You can share them too if you want to.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Oh yeah. Why don't you go ahead and pull it up on your side there?
Sure.
So I don't have to log in like for the 100th time on Dropbox here with everybody watching.
Right. I'm just showing the female one, correct?
You can share them both if you want. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me share screen here.
No, that's excellent.
Yeah, that's rad.
So yeah, this is one of the Sicarian elves, and so she's kind of the matriarch, and basically you can see all the undersea kind of influence and reference that I pulled in. I also looked at a lot of high fashion stuff, like runway, like kind of avant-garde stuff, because there's surprisingly, if you delve into things like Pinterest or fashion blogs and things like that, you'll see cool forms that you can add basically whatever kind of theme you want onto it, and you can get some really, really great ideas from that stuff. But yeah, so the idea is that they live under the sea, so the coral, the seaweed. There's also like a Greek and kind of like a Greek motif that goes with them. You see it in some of the other ones that we can't share today, but that's another point. You know, it's like there's the fantasy aspect. Elves have been done before and many things, but let's add a little Greek element to them. So that was a fun thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the cool thing about these two is that they, while we're creating like two different basically subspecies of elves with these designs, there's still design motifs that kind of run across and kind of ring true throughout the different subspecies of elves. You know, like we're still sticking with those ears, even though we've changed them up a little bit. You know, they still have that interesting kind of up curl that Steve incorporated into the Alarian elves, but it's a little bit different, a little bit more exaggerated, and kind of using these oceanic shapes, like Vin was saying. What I love with the coral and everything on here, Vin, is that you know, you mentioned that there's kind of like those subtle Greek motifs that you have in this. And while it's not so evident on this one, it's still there. You know, like there's still like these very specific cut lines that you have in there, and that's something that you do a lot in your work that I really dig, where you get these cut lines and these design shapes that are very evocative of what is inspiring the design. You know, like in this case, ancient Greek culture. But then you switch it up. You dress it up in a different way, you know, like you
Right.
have the overall shapes that stick true to those design motifs, but then you fill in those shapes with something kind of unexpected. Like in this case, you have that sort of a really cool kelp jellyfish kind of shape to the skirt, that really awesome kind of coral flare at the elbow. And that's what gets me excited about this kind of art, is that you throw in these really fun, unexpected aspects to it.
Right.
That's what hooked me into writing this world. That's part of what hooked me. Watching these completely disparate elements joining together and forming something that had never been seen before, and at the same time calls to you. Like this is an archetype. This calls to me. I recognize this despite never having seen it before. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what, like, again, for me, what makes this setting so interesting is that we have one foot in what are considered fairly traditional tropes and everything, but then with that other foot, we're taking a pretty big step forward and bringing it into new kind of unexpected directions, which is great.
Feels classical.
Yeah, exactly. Then, did you want to go ahead? We can kind of segue into this faction a little bit since we already have it up here, Vin.
Sure. I can show the other one too. But
yeah, if you want to pull up the other one, we can do that.
I have it on a different window, so let me share again. One moment here, sorry.
It's a lot of dead air, Vinod. Come on.
Well, actually, while it's opening up, I'll show you. So they also have the Sicarians. Let me grab Zoom here. There we go. And share screen again. And there we go. And, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So sweet. they have these kind of constructs that they how do you want to say it? They bioengineered?
Yeah, I'd say bioengineered is probably the best.
They're the created ones, the crafted ones.
Right.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Life forms made in a lab. Sicarians are like the scientists, the magicians, the alchemists, the life creators. Right.
So I went through a couple iterations. I can actually show some of those since I have them in sketch form. So I this is the one we ended up with, but you know, I did ones where it was like a shell with these moray eel kind of shapes coming out of them. This one's kind of more almost goofy looking, but it's got this like double fish head kind of thing, like tentacle legs.
That dude's so fun. That dude's like totally like an Ultraman villain. Like,
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So it does look like a guy in a suit for sure. This one makes me laugh every time. So this one just looks like he's going.
That dude's just screaming.
But you can see, yeah, this guy's not having a good day. But you can see elements that ended up in the final. Like Tom and I over email and art direction emails, like kind of decided, okay, let's take a few elements and kind of combine them into this kind of thing, which ended up into this more of this final design. So it was fun. It's super fun to take different animal forms and what you have to do is you have to find transition areas where you can blend those rather than it being like when you think of some mythological creatures like a chimera are literally the head of a goat, the head of a lion. They're stuck on. It's very jarring. It's supposed to be like that. But now with the way we kind of modern sensibilities of creature design, if we did that and it's not strictly in that mythological setting, people are going to be like, oh, that doesn't look real. That looks fake. So you have to kind of blend things a little bit more. And that's where the fun of this kind of design comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I always
go ahead, Stephen. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, and you probably do this, maybe not as literal, but I always think of like a ratio when it comes to merging animal components. Like the legs are, they're 70% wolf legs, but with and they're 30% human legs, and that's how you make a werewolf.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
So I think of that. Yeah.
Yeah. That, and then the other thing, going back to that transition area that Vin was talking about, that's such an important point because you don't want it feeling like a cut and pasted creature. Even here, this is a literal chimera. This is something that's literally made from the pieces of other creatures in a lab with different aspects of it all. But we don't want it feeling like it's cut and pasted still. Like a kidnapper letter from a magazine where you're cutting out each letter and pasting it on. Like, we don't want that vibe. So I always think of it as wrapping paper. Like the final wrapping paper that you put on always helps unify it a little bit for me, you know. Like if I'm designing a dragon up, and I'm using like Steve said that percentage rule where I'm like, all right, we've got this percentage of the hind quarters are cat based. This percentage of the fore quarters are horse based. This aspect is canid based. We're going to put a wrapping paper on all of that anatomy of this kind of scale texture, and that always helps kind of unify it for me. These ones are always way trickier for me to handle. Those monsters where you need them to feel chimeric, but also walk that cohesive line, you know. And what I love about you, Vin, on these is that you hit this great mark on these through the shape design, through that silhouette, you know. Like you get these rad silhouettes going with these guys that really make them pop and really make them stand out.
One thing, you know, on top of all that, or in addition to all the stuff we were talking about, being kind of, you know, putting your design hat on and making sure everything flows nicely, there is just also the monster aspect of it, where some of the best monsters designed do have jarring elements that are put together, and that's what makes them kind of unnerving. So it's always good to take all the biology and anatomy and all that stuff, get it in there, but then also don't forget about like, hey, this also has to be emotional. Like it has to have a creepy or a funny or whatever you're trying to add to it. That has to be in there too. And you know, I'm not saying like something like this. When I was designing like a creature like this, I want it to be fun, but also like kind of believable in some weird way. So like when this gets turned into a 3D sculpture or something, and you put it on your table when you're playing the game, like you want it to be fun to look at and kind of like, here's my monster, and like it's got that toy-like feeling as well. So you got to kind of combine all that stuff. Otherwise, you're getting too heady about things, and then the life of it goes away.
The 3D sculpture. Tyler Lawson asks, and I don't know if this would be more the jurisdiction of Daniel Early. We'll answer. But Tyler asked if there's a chance of having an art book for a stretch goal on the Kickstarter. And we'll say that we will. Tyler, we will make an art book, but it will be later, after the Kickstarter campaign. Sorry, go on.
We've got a lot of really cool art in the works right now too. So we've got a lot of art to fill that potential art book with. That's like I said, right now we're only seeing these two factions released with this Kickstarter right now, which are Tyverian and Ilaria. But Sicaria here, which is what we're looking at from Vinod, is coming up, and then we'll also have a very cool faction. I'll share some pieces from a couple other factions as well. A Mesoamerican themed faction that we have, Nawa, and a Viking paladin themed faction, Yisval, that Tyler Walpole is currently working on for us right now. So we can share a bit of that before the call's over. But we still got some of these sweet Sicarian monsters up here. Did we want to show off some of the shark folk then?
Sure. So they were a lot of fun because then
these are my favorites that you did.
So we had 3 shark folk. We had I'll go through them really quick.
That's awesome.
The Mako.
These are a player character race.
Yeah. So this guy's more of like warrior, like a fighter. This
was the
one
6-arm, Vinod, was the 6-arm your idea? Were you like spur of the moment, like what would make this a little bit crazier?
No, that was it. I'll show you. I have some of the sketches. So they originally didn't have. They just had 2 arms and 2 legs, and I went in I don't know, like I'll show you in a second because my first sketch cracks me up because it's so not what this is. But one thing, Tom, when I was talking to Tom over email about stuff, he was like, hey, one of the ideas was that they could have 4 arms. And I was like, that's exactly the prompt I needed, because otherwise they do look like just Shark Man. like street
Yeah.
sharks or like
like street.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I
So
love
it's
those
like-
little quick jumps. Like you just like, here's an idea. That's the one I needed. Like that.
Yeah,
And then
like-
you can roll with that. You can roll with so much after the one idea
Right.
gets established.
Right. So then there's also this hammerhead who's more like a guard style.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like he's funny. He's got a little bit of that monster, like old school monster vibe to him because he's like clearly like, you know, it's believable that the anatomy's believable. Hopefully that I've drawn it well enough. But then, you know, there's the goofy monster aspect of him. Like he's got eyes on the side of his head and
This
like how exactly does that work? Who cares? It's a fun monster. Like I like that part of it too.
Sometimes silhouette wins.
Yeah, the silhouette totally wins on this one, and that old school monster vibe is so charming on this guy because he, like, you can picture him moving around, right? Like you can picture like the weird squat way that this guy would like turn and like hold all those spears at all these crazy weird angles.
Right.
I love it. It's got a very it has a very Star Warsy like cantina vibe to it, almost, you know?
That's definitely one thing I always think about when I'm designing. I think a lot of it might come from spending so much time in video game world. But like, yeah, how's it going to move? Even if we're not animating them, you know, like it's still good to think about that sometimes. Because there's a lot of fantasy designs where they look amazing and beautiful in that one pose that the person painted them in, but then what? Like, yeah. You don't, you can't imagine that cool warrior landing and then walking off because it's constructed for that moment. So, and then this one's probably my favorite, the elder.
This one has a life of its own.
Yeah.
So this is
it's so good.
Yeah, this is like this is kind of like my background. This is the fat great white. I decided to make it like a matriarch, like a lady, like the big queen of the sharks. And she was a lot of fun because like the other two are upright, and then having her like she's so old that she needs to be supported by her other two arms. I really got into like, this is probably how she would animate too. Like, you know, she'd move her legs and then the arms and then use her axe as like a walking stick kind of thing until she tried to hit you or whatever. And one thing on these characters is little ways to sell the scale of them. Like, you know, things like making their eyes not get too big, because then it throws the scale off. You know, you think everything gets bigger when you draw a monster, but sometimes when you draw a monster that's on a huge scale, you want to keep some of the details very small because those are the details that are relatable to us as a person. So things like wrinkles and stuff you got to pay attention to, not getting too overboard. There's a way proportionally that if you go wrong with that, it starts to look like almost like the super deformed or chibi style, like a cute version where it looks like everyone's got a big head and they look like little infants. So but yeah, I'll show you guys some of the sketches. So you guys remember this one, right? So this guy is all fast and he looks like he's going to move fast and like move in a lethal way. The first one I sent to town looked like this.
Oh, I love it though.
Look at this.
I love
this big boy.
He's pretty fantastic.
He is, but I am glad that we talked and we went back and forth a little bit because he does not work anymore.
Like, Steve is still laughing on the other end.
Yeah, like, oh, this guy looks cool. I want to be this guy. I don't know about this one.
His head is awesome though. Like, there's fantastic components. I'm glad he kept a lot of. When you moved on to the next phase.
Right.
Yep. Is that you can see where things still transitioned and kind of carried over to that final design still. Like there's still a lot of this in that final design. And I think that's something that's that a lot of people who aren't in the who aren't working artists really don't don't get a lot. This is actually, you know what? I know you guys feel the same way when you see these articles as I do. When you see those articles that are like, this is the Thanos that we almost got in Endgame.
Yeah.
Like, no, you guys almost didn't get that Thanos. Like, that's part of the design process.
Yeah, those are like clickbait. Like, we don't have content for this week, so we better find something in the art book.
Exactly. And it's like, you didn't almost get that Thanos. You got the shoulder from that Thanos, the chin from that Thanos, the silhouette from this Thanos. And this is a great example of that. So much of this sketch carried over to that final design, you know?
Yeah.
We still have the same armor. We still have overall those same kind of proportions.
Right.
Just finessed a little bit more. And like Steve said, with that little key of that kind of unlocks the potential of that design, of that extra pair of arms thrown in. Sometimes it's all you need with the design is finding that one little cornerstone where you're like, that's it. And this is what we're going to run with, you know?
What the arms did by adding extra arms on all these, what it did was it got them out of human mode and into like monster mode, but it gave me something else to like balance. So like now I can put some of the weight on an arm, or I can, do something else with them. And it's a little little extra thing to do a little acting with. And that's kind of important when you're designing some of this stuff, is like,
but it gives balance to their anatomy.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that that's why I came to you after that initial sketch, Vin, with that extra set of arm idea, because that first sketch that you submitted for that dude. Yep, our big guy there.
Can't not laugh at it anymore.
So our first dude here, like when you sent that to me, like there was so much of this dude that I loved, and I liked the tiny legs, and I was like, how do we make those tiny legs work? Right. And then I remembered that we had that idea for the extra pair of arms on the matriarch, and I thought, why don't let's just roll with it? Let's just put it on all these dudes, and it was like the final piece that this dude needed, you know, to really.
So even like here's a really quick sketch of the hammerhead before, and you can see like, it's getting there, but like there's something that's missing. Like there's a big shark head, there's a kind of a human body, there's human arms in a way, and a shark tail, and it's like, okay, well maybe as soon as you add the extra arms, it becomes something different. And I think
that's the key visual that separates it from everything.
Right. So that's where this sketch came from.
When you sent me this sketch, that was when I was
from
like,
there to there.
Yep. That silhouette on this sketch was what really sold me on it. As soon as that hit the inbox, I was like, that's it. That's what we're going to go for.
Yeah.
And then last...
oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. You're good.
The last sketch was where I started with that matriarch. So still pretty cute for some reason. But then when you get into sketch stage, you can make her. Oh, and at one point they had I put these fin ears that droop down, and I like doing that stuff because it frames the face. I do that in a lot of designs. It's kind of like I always go back to that. But Tom's feedback was like, it's covering up too much of the like musculature and stuff like that, and why not just, if we get rid of them, then as soon as he said let's not go with those, then at least I filled them in with what should be there, which are gills. So that made more sense actually. So I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that we talked through those for sure.
Can I just say, because you've been mentioning Tom a lot, how you did a lot of back and forth with Tom, and that this project especially, like I think Tom's kind of on our level of working artist. He isn't like a former artist that's an art director. So I think his sensibility is so in cue with what we all like to do. And so it's been awesome to work with Tom, just bouncing ideas and having it click. And he knows, he isn't like, no, I can only have 2 arms and 2 legs. Like he's wide open to some sweeping change, and having it immediate, not having like a design by committee where he's like, well, I have to run it by this squad of paper pushers first or something.
Right.
So it's so organic that we can do that switch immediately, and you can just start drawing the 6-limbed shark guy.
I mean, I don't know, I also think it probably has something to do with the fact that you know, Draco as a company, you know, it's not some big monolithic, you know, owned by 16 other companies. When you have that kind of agility as a company to do things like this, you don't have to go through 15 board meetings to be like,
exactly,
we're going to change the shark design. I'll let you know in 3 weeks when we've talked to like all the marketing people and 400 other groups. So I think that helps a lot. I've noticed that when I work on video game stuff, is the smaller companies can do a lot more than a larger company. So
and that's one of the things that you know, Steve kind of passed it to me and said, you know, Tom's really cool with letting this stuff go and approving stuff and trying out cool ideas. And I'm going to pass that up one other level here and say that's you know, that goes to Draco and JC and Will and Dan and Dan. There's 2 Dans. That wasn't me repeating Dan in a dementia kind of way. There's 2 Dans.
D&D.
Yeah, exactly. So I lost my train of thought there. They're good people to work with. There we go. No, they're great at understanding and respecting the artistic process as well. It's a kind of a great relationship the art team has with the writing team. You know, I mentioned that the writing team gets me those descriptions, and there's always like the footnote whenever I get descriptions from the writing team, but feel free to change anything to make it look cooler.
We're always rewriting based on your designs.
Yeah.
We're constantly redefining the lore because, you know, that shit looks so awesome. We have to, I just have to redefine these lore elements. I'm sorry. You know?
I mean, I think that back and forth shows on a project like this as opposed to some larger project or whatever, because you get to see like, okay, here's a description, we'll work on it, something gets changed like the 4 arms or whatever we decide, and then it goes back to you guys, and then, you know, there's not another revision like, we don't like it, you guys liked it, so then you revise the writing. So
we prefer to revise it on our end, you know,
right?
Just to be safe.
Yeah, exactly. We like to make their jobs, the writing team's jobs, that much more awful. Like, you guys on the writing and lore side need to do like 4 times as many revisions because of all the changes that we're making on the art side and updating things. And that's the cool thing too. Like,
much easier to rewrite a paragraph than to remake such a wonderful design, you know?
Right.
And again, like, that's why we're getting such cool stuff, is because there's this mutual respect for the process, you know? And that sounds such a like an ethereal, lame art thing to say. Like, they really respect the process, but they do.
But it's so true. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, it absolutely is true. Hey, Vin, I just got word that we are good to share the Sea Bears. If you want to share those guys too.
Okay.
I don't know if you have
I'll pull them up. Maybe somebody else can.
Brad, yeah, I can go ahead and let me go ahead and you know, log back into Dropbox while everybody watches again. No, I'm gonna go ahead and share.
Change your password and get the email and the code. And...
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Steve. I'm gonna pull up the. I'm actually gonna pull up these Kyrins, Steve. If you want to talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
We can go ahead and.
Is that how you pronounce it? The Kyrin?
Curious, this is doing this again. Of course it is. Kyrin.
Yeah. So that's a pretty established look until I found out that the Chinese have a different Kirin look than the Japanese, or something like that. Like, one's a cross between a dog and a dragon and a horse, and the other one's I don't know what the other one is. It's a cross between a goat and a horse and a lizard. I don't know. They have different looks. And I was like, all right, if there's different looks, then we can. Yeah.
Like, there's the random weird detail always thrown in, like, and an oxtail, and it's like, an ox, like, that's weirdly specific.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The hind foot of a 4-year-old goat. Like,
there's so many creatures in mythology that are like that. Like, that's stupid. It's half mule and half jackass. That's the same thing. That's just a mythological creature. That's just a mild hybrid.
Just you add more animal, you make more powerful.
Yeah, yeah, it's a more powerful mule.
The more you duct tape on there. Yeah.
Anyway, before we get off
let
on
me
that.
go ahead and I'm going to pull this stuff up in a way that doesn't have me sharing all my info on the screen. While I'm doing that, do we want to go ahead and take some questions if we have any?
Oh no, we have no more questions. A lot of comments.
No more questions?
A lot of comments.
All right.
They love your work. They love your work. You know, Tyler Lawson again says that the thin ears for the matriarch really gave her a sage look.
Oh,
You know,
cool. Yeah.
that they would look good on a magic caster shark.
I think my favorite. I like drawing old people, and even if it's an old monster, an old character, old creature, like you can add an extra level of kind of character to them than if you're drawing like the hot guy or the hot girl. So
Yeah.
even
it's
on
almost
a
like-
big. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you kind of have to like do not a generic version of like the young 20-year-olds, but you
Right,
do you
right.
you have to eliminate a lot of the character lines and stuff that automatically push it old when the younger you make something. So I know exactly what you mean. Like
Right.
this is just gonna be generic hot chick.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Wait.
All right,
waiting for Tom.
I'm pulling some stuff up here. So give me a sec, because technology is great until it doesn't work. Right.
I know all about that.
You do. We just had to talk about that last night.
I'll find the problem with all technology. They should run everything by me.
Yeah, what was it last night? Your Instagram didn't have the share story thing on it for unknown reasons?
Yeah, the link, the insert link or whatever on Instagram stories. I just don't get to have that, even though I have more than 10,000 followers. It is not allowing me to share.
Humble brag. Come on.
Well, that's the
that's
only
what that
thing I
was.
could find out when I was like, there's got to be something I'm missing because I'm an airhead about it, and they're like, no, automatically you get it if it's this. So whatever.
Right.
I guess they're all bots, so I'm not too worried about it.
Steve has no real fans or followers.
They're all blank profile pics that I have.
It's
I
really
really
sad.
like this person. Chester 5688992. Did you bring up those Kieran yet? Let's talk about that instead of stupid technology.
Instead of sad Steve stories. I'm gonna bring up some of mine here really quick, actually.
There we go. That's one of yours.
Here we go. I'm
wow.
going to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming stuff that I've got coming out here. This sucker is one of the main dragons in the storyline. So the setting name obviously is Dragonbond, and as you heard JC mention, there's dragons and there's bonding in this setting. It's basically what you have are these dragons that come from a neighboring moon when this alignment happens in between the moon and this planet. The dragons can pass through a portal to this world where they kind of go on raids of this planet and everything. It's almost like a coming of age type of ritual for the dragons. Is that right, JC? Am I getting all that? Pretty spot on.
The dragons come, kill people, they kidnap people, and they are now full-grown dragons.
Yep, and then so that's kind of that's their bar mitzvah basically. Is what that is for the dragons. But when they go and they raid this planet or raid this world, the realm of Valerna, there's a possibility for a dragon bond to happen, where one of the mortal races and the dragons bond and link together. And this is one of those dragons from the storyline that bonds with one of the mortals of Valerna. So, like Vin was mentioning, with this, what I like to do with these guys is, you find out what works as far as the anatomy goes. You find out what works as far as what feels realistic and what feels believable, because we have modern sensibilities now.
Realistic and believable are two entirely different things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's something that I think that gets overlooked a lot. Like I also teach. I'm an art instructor as well as a concept artist, illustrator, and all that jazz. But one of the things that I try to get across to my students all the time is that you want stuff to feel like it works. You don't need it to work. It doesn't have to actually be able to take off into the sky and get up there. You need to find this sweet spot balancing act. And with this one, that's really what I wanted to hit with this guy, is make him feel fast, make him feel quick, make him feel like he has a lot of speed to him. So I kind of stuck with a lot of these design aesthetics and kind of pulled from creatures in the real world that kind of get that vibe across. So the body itself is mostly a cheetah. You've got basically a de-haired cheetah there, and then we've got these frigate bird wings, which are a seabird. I don't know if many folks know what those are. They're these really cool looking. They basically look like crazy murder Sith seagulls. Basically, they've got these like awesome like black feathers and this great red throat pouch deal. But they have these really cool long pointed wings that kind of give this really fun kind of fast feel to them. So I kind of went with those wings as sort of the basis for these guys, but played up the shape a little bit. And using those wings is a good example of using something that looks like it could work, but doesn't necessarily work, because I wanted this guy to feel fast. Those wings are made for long sea flights. So these birds are usually crossing giant stretches of ocean, and they're not really doing much. Like they open their wings and they just kind of glide, and that's it. They do some fun aerial maneuvers and stuff, but they're not really like really quick rapid flyers like swallows or something like that. And I wanted this guy to have a quick vibe, but that wing, that shape, that kind of long dagger-like shape to that wing is evocative of those kind of faster motions. So even though this creature, a creature with wings of this shape in the real world, wouldn't really be using it to maneuver really fast, because that shape kind of gives the impression of it. It still works in the design, which is kind of fun. So, and then going from there, it was just a fun game of shape design, It all just boiled down to what shapes look cool. My process, I know a lot of people do, Steve does a lot of exploratory sketching in his sketchbook to kind of find the fun shapes and everything. Other people do a lot of, thumbnail sketching where they'll do silhouette studies and things like that. I do a combination of kind of fun exploratory sketches, and then just kind of what I call just playing around with clay or playing around with mud, which is where I just kind of go into Photoshop and I just make marks and I smoosh them around until I start finding cool shapes. That's how that kind of fun.
Speaking of Photoshop and the process, Jennifer Raby asks, what kinds of programs, of applications do you use for your artwork?
That's a good question. For me, most of the concept stuff I do is a combination between sketchbook and just sketchbook as in my sketchbook, my physical sketchbook, not an app named sketchbook. It's from my physical sketchbook, and then Procreate. I'll usually throw stuff in Procreate and then paint on top of it. Sometimes the drawing shows through. Sometimes I just paint all over the top of it. You can't see the drawing anymore. It all depends on how the design's going. Right. But those are my two primary ones. I don't know what you guys use. Steve and Ben, you guys want to share?
I did. So when I started the project, I started drawing in pencil. But then when I started getting into the monster stuff, like the shark people and the sea bears and the crab people and stuff, I actually went all digital, only because when it comes to monster and creature stuff, I like to move things around a lot.
Yeah.
And when I'm drawing like a human, like a humanoid, then it's way easier for me to just draw in my sketchbook, and it's a lot of fun to do it, with pencil and paper. But when it came to some of these big shapes and stuff, I like to like grab the lasso tool and make something big and then make something small and do dumb stuff like that. So it's like Photoshop that I was using Procreate for most of that stuff because I wanted to get better at it, and this was a good project to work on that with. Whether it's Procreate or Photoshop for monster stuff, I did those digitally, but then some of them I did draw traditionally, like what Steve usually does.
I kind of do is similar to what you do. I guess it leans more heavily on the traditional part where I draw out everything pretty detailed and scan it in and clean up the sketch, and that's when I start playing around with the lasso. Like once I see it on the computer screen, I realize like, I don't like the proportions here, so I'll lasso out the head and shrink it and maybe tilt it a little bit. and do the
Right.
same with the legs and kind of adjust it until it looks right there. And then I just make it a transparent layer and color beneath it pretty much.
Right. Right.
So combo and messing around. Digital definitely plays a huge part in it, though. This would be a pain if, 25 years ago we were doing this. Oh, I'm painting this one now. Get out my acrylics.
with our
Faxing in my. Hey Tom, I'm faxing over my sketch.
the horrible noise of it, the fax machine in the background.
Well, one thing on Tom on this dragon that I like is, in some of the classes I've taught, like I tell my students to do the same thing as far as like give people, like tell people where to look. Like even if it's a character design on a white background, it's still a composition. And so when you pop this open, the first thing you look at is the head, of course, but then there's like a nice area of rest on that skinless body, and then you have the tail that has a little pop at the end, and that's it lets you float your eyeballs get to move around the image in a nice way, like they would with a full composition painting. And that's important to do with creature and monster design too. Like you don't necessarily have to put even elements everywhere. Like you can play with the proportions, and it'll help that your eye move across it.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Yeah, thanks for noticing that, because that's something that I'm always mindful of, is that kind of almost like a visual weight distribution of the details, right?
Yeah.
Kind of have to figure out where you kind of want to load stuff up and where you need the eye to relax a little bit, because you can't have everything everywhere. Because at that point in time, it becomes a mess. You have too many elements fighting for attention. So yeah, you need those kind of rest areas. You need those quieter areas. Doesn't mean that they have to be boring. You can still design them up in a fun kind of way. As far as in those areas, I usually lean more on silhouette or kind of the actual the weight of those areas, like how thick or thin that area is. And play around with that to add interest to it, but you don't need to get crazy with it. Like you said, like the body's a little more of a relaxed area, and that tail it's a simple tail, until you get to that tail fan, and that's intentional. It's made to so you can kind of look at it and relax a little bit, and then it still has that visual interest and that flow to it.
Right.
The tail is such a great touch, like that. Like I love the point in a design or an illustration where it goes from right at the peak to over the top awesome. And that, like, if that was just a regular tail that just ended in a little, I don't know, a spike or just a tip, that'd still be a great design because the head and the neck is cool. But that little punch on the tail of the fan, like the decorative, it could be aggression or it could be mating, whatever. It's just an awesome, like, that's it. That's the moment where it goes from excellent to awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's
Tyler said it looks like a pteranodon, like a Rhamphorhynchus or Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, there's definitely aspects of all that in there, But yeah, no, like what Steve was saying, that's something that I'm sure both of you guys, like Steve and Vin, have encountered with your designs before too. Like where you're going through a design and the sharks, the shark folk are a good example from a technical standpoint, like what makes this design kind of work and makes it different. It's like the extra arms on those shark folk are kind of the same thing as that tail fan. It's that little aspect that pushes it up another notch, and you're like, that's it, cool. That's what we needed. Just that little extra thing to be tossed on there. There was a couple instances like that with the with I think some of the Alarian designs, Steve. I'm trying to remember which ones in particular that I believe like the Kyrins we had a couple talks like that with. Yeah. And again, I'll pull those up in a second here. Let me see if I can. Here we go. I'll go side, and before we get to those, I'll show off a couple other dragons. So we got this dragon too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, wow. So we've got that. That guy's fun. Really different kind of visual weight than the previous one.
Yeah.
Nice little stocky, chunky dude.
Yeah, that one looks like it can fly through a brick wall.
Right.
Yeah, this guy lifts with Vin's Sharkfolk sketch. He goes.
He picks them up one in each hand and just says, "Rah!"
No, but like this is another example, of that visual weight and playing around with where those details are. We got it kind of clustered up at the front with that kind of front heavy aspect, a little calmer at the tail type deal. and then that kind of fun pinecone texture, which is kind of neat.
It's like a bulldog body too, like total different body type than the hairless cheetah look.
Yeah, a lot heavier. And we've got, what else do I got here? Got this dude. So this guy is also from the
oh wow,
from the Mesoamerican inspired faction Nawa, which is coming up in the next release for Draco. And these guys, these are bird folk that live in this area of the Dragonbond realm. So these guys are super fun. These ones in particular, this particular sect of bird folk, these are like the wizards of the faction, basically. So these are like the mages, the wizards, the scholars of the faction.
They're called
Bokun. Yep. And these guys, what's cool about these ones, and what was really fun about these ones was playing around with that anchor that I was talking about before. You know, we talked about with Steve when we were talking about the elves, how we need to have like that little bit of a visual anchor that calls back to previous designs, right? So like with the elves, we need to have those pointed ears because that's something that's characteristic of elves, you know? So with this guy, it's a wizard, so I needed a wizard anchor on this guy. So I wanted to figure out kind of a fun way that's not too on the nose to fit in, you know, a wizard beard, a wizard hat, stuff like that. So birds are awesome because they've got infinite plumage options for you to play around with. So on this one, I went in and kind of played up with the idea of putting in this this crazy neck plume that's kind of coming down. That kind of is a nod to like a wizard beard, and then playing around with that really fun head crest, which is kind of a nod to a wizard's hat. Even coming up there in the back, that little diamond shape of the ruff as it comes up, where it looks almost like a high collar that you'd see on a wizard or something like that. So playing around with these shapes and kind of subtly injecting them in there to not over, I don't want to be over the top, you know, I don't want to design it to look exactly like a big beard. I think this guy originally also had little, he had two little kind of mustache things coming off of his beak, and that seemed a little too on the nose for me, so I kind of dropped those. But you know, finding ways to kind of subtly sneak in these design cues that get the viewer to sort of subconsciously feel what you're trying to get across. It is so important to these designs, and it's something that I love, you know? Like, I love playing that game. I love trying to be kind of tricky with it, where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make this a wizard, and they're not even going to know they're looking at a wizard. Like, that
like
kind
how
of
little
it's
can you get away with?
I'll have you know, this little sketch of yours inspired a whole new character for the novels.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't hear this yet, so that makes me super happy. Excellent. Yeah, no, these guys are super fun. There's going to be a close combat variant of them too that grows their head crests in a different way and their feathers in a different way. Since these guys are so attuned to magic and all, I figured that'd be kind of a fun aspect of them, is that they can kind of will themselves to grow their feathers in different patterns, sort of. So the close combat variants are going to be a little different looking than these guys are.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
really
fun stuff. Let me get back out of here. There we go. I'm back.
Hello, Tom.
Hello. And then I want to go ahead and show some of Steve's stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here really quick, and we can get into that. Which is, I think we've got the what's the next release, JC? Which ones are coming out next after?
This first release includes Valeria, which is the nation that Steve illustrated. You know, with the elves, with the diverse ethnicity elves. Then Tyveria, we haven't talked about Tyveria yet. It's the
the vampires
with all the vampires, yeah. And next comes Nahuac. Nahuac is like our Mesoamerican nation. We are trying to veer away from the straight lift out of Mesoamerican cultures. We are trying to add a mix of like we did with Valeria. You know, that it's not exactly Chinese. It's like China meets Tolkien meets something entirely new. We're trying to do that with Nahuac. It's right now that is the process. Nahuac said, that's next. Then comes Isval. Isval is the same is Vikings, but not Vikings, is Normandy, but not Normandy, Carolingians, but not Carolingians. And there's also, we have, we took a page of Marvel's book, and we have Vikings with all kinds of skin colors, you know?
Yeah.
And then comes, so it's Nahuac, then Isval, then Sicaria, and we are gonna be churning out nations for a good while for the foreseeable future. You know, because
Tom has shared a few.
There's a lot of realms in Valerna.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna be. Actually, let me go ahead and hold some of those up here while we're talking about it. That's my I'm trying to pull things up noise. Very
practiced, well practiced.
Very official sounding noise. Let's do, we're going to do some cool ones here. I know what we're going to share. Yeah, let's do these guys.
Oh, cool.
That's Tyveria,
right.
That's the vampires.
Yep,
Yeah.
So we saw a little bit of Ilaria in that captain, that elf captain. And again, Ilaria is part of the Kickstarter right now. It's one of the 2 factions that you can check out in the Kickstarter. This is the other faction in the Kickstarter, Tyveria, which is a nation of these vampire servants and their Magir masters, which are kind of, I guess the simplest way to kind of explain them would be blood sorcerers that create these vampires to sort of fuel their blood magic as their servants and also as their fuel, basically.
They are like this Bronze Age barbaric culture, but also like very sophisticated artistic, aesthetic culture.
Right. Yeah, they're like very high aesthetic. Like they very much value, physical beauty. Like JC was mentioning, they very much value aesthetics, strength. They're very big on their physical form and their prowess. So showing off their peak physical performance and their bodies is kind of key to them as far as culture
leg
goes.
day. She didn't skip leg day, as Dan said in the comments.
No, she did not skip leg day. Yeah, no, not at all. But
like Chun-Li legs.
Yeah, oh, totally. This is probably my favorite one of the vampires that Steve did, though. I love this design so much. This one was super cool to get in. Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about the design process on this one?
Yeah, I think you gave me, again, you just gave me like 1 or 2 sentence description on what they are, and they're vampires. I can't remember if you described them as being super buff or not, but I think we went that way immediately.
Yeah, we went quick.
And they ride scorpions and they ride wasps, and what was the other? There was one other key element that you gave me on them. It'll come to me. I'm freezing up, but it was fun. Well, go ahead.
It might have been the either the Persian armor or the.
That's what it was. Yeah, it was like Persian was like the jumping off point. And I went with that, and it didn't feel right. Like the more Persian there was, so I like kept pulling away from it. I don't know if you remember like the first few sketches of those, but I had to like start with Persian and just go way off base until it still felt like really, really distantly like it could be kind of Middle Eastern. But I just started pushing like the insect aspect of it, like making it kind of jagged, more malevolent looking. And my favorite aspect of it, and this is just whatever, this is being the father of a girl now, but I like how am I going to show a lot of skin without being sexualized? Because that is easy. When I look at Instagram and all that stuff, like fantasy art is brimming still to this day in 2020 of like overly sexualized armor and garb, and it's obnoxious anymore. It was fine when I was 13.
Male bikini survives.
Yeah, exactly. So how and we wanted these vampires to show a lot of skin. Well, how do you do that, especially on the females, without it looking like that? Like we're just like, yeah, they got awesome cleavage and a great butt. How can I do that where it's showing off the muscles and it's sexy in that muscular way, but not in a sexualized way? So that kind of like nuanced approach I love that kind of challenge. And that was actually the best part of playing around with these characters, was just how much skin can I show before it becomes, before it crosses
also look
that
quite
line.
sexy. The males are oh my god.
Yeah,
They're showing a lot of skin too.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about this faction is that Steve was equal in the lack of garments that he gave to both male and females in this faction, but also like Steve was saying, going beyond that, it's like I think that's what a lot of people focus on when they look at stuff like this. Like when they look at a character who's not wearing a lot of armor, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, well, then how are the males depicted? And they both need to be depicted equally. And it's true. You do need to treat them both equally at that point. But there's a deeper aspect to it from a design standpoint. And Steve touched on that, which is designing with empowerment in mind rather than objectification.
Right.
And that's what Steve just rocked on these. Because every single one of these characters in this faction, like they're powerful, proud, strong characters, and they're not objectification.
I'm sexy because I choose to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And what's cool about it too is that it reads like you're not going to tell her otherwise. You know,
That's
like,
what Tyveria is.
Awesome.
That's what Tyveria is.
And kind of like how the elves, they have to have those pointy ears, and maybe their armor has to be a little bit more elegant than it is, squared off or whatever. Like when you think about vampires, they got pointy teeth, and they're kind of vain, and they're kind of sexual. So you have to like keep a certain amount of that around. Like it seems. I mean, you can make feral vampires and make them completely disgusting. But these, these they're supposed to be elegant. They're supposed to be bloodsuckers, and they're supposed to be sexy, but not, overly sexy.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's a great balancing act. And one of the things that I love too, that was like, it's such a weird design thing that you did, but it totally stuck right from the beginning, that was super early, are the super weird, like cut ears, like the little like jagged ear shape.
They just have like a forked ear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see that now. I didn't even see that at first. That's awesome.
It's like a super fun little aspect of that. But here's something that I love about the design process too, is that when you get multiple artists working in the same setting, everybody can kind of riff off of each other at that point in time, which is super fun. So Steve actually came up with the sketch and everything for this character before I got to the mounts for this character. So I designed the wasps that these guys ride, and I had the idea for the wasp in mind for a while. But when Steve got me this design with that really awesome armored sleeve on it, I wanted to work that into the wasp design. So I ran with that. Right down like the back of that wasp, down the abdomen back there, coming down to the stinger tail, just kind of playing around with that shape motif and incorporating it in, because that it's a fun area to tie in, and that's one of the joys of working with such an awesome team of artists, is that we're all kind of, like Steve said, we're all kind of on the same level and the same page as far as design cues and design aesthetic goes, and we can kind of riff off each other and get those that really fun kind of oh no, I was going to say the word synergy in not a sarcastic way. It almost happened. We can get that really fun synergy, guys, by working like this.
You have to have one of those mics that comes out in front of you when you say that.
I do, yeah. I need one of those, and I need enough room to pace in here too.
And talk about shifting the paradigms. We're going to shift the paradigm and think outside the box.
Think outside the box, yeah.
Yeah, that thumb point too, like this. How that works?
Make it viral, boys.
But no, this is super fun to figure out though. Like I said, combining up like the stuff that Steve's doing on one end of the project and incorporating into the next step of the project.
It's Tyveria. You can say vampirizing each other.
There we go. We're
that's good.
Exactly. And then going a step further, we've got another faction. We talked about Yisval a little bit, which is the Viking faction. We've got a really, really awesome faction in Yisval. These peoples who settled down in this northern region, and what was kind of cool with it, it's another one of those examples where the lore starts being figured out through the artwork as well. So we have these peoples that settled into this northern region, and they survived by the virtue of the help from these native beings that live up there, including basically frost giants that are up there. But Tyler Walpole is working on that for us right now, those designs. But I wanted to show off one of the main characters from the Dragonbond setting here that Steve designed up for us right here. We actually have a different version of it too. This might be the older version that we designed up before we settled on changing a couple features on it. No, this is the new one.
That's the new one. Yeah.
That's the new one. We're good.
That guy looks very happy. I like him.
This guy's actually, that's one of the reasons I dig this dude, is because he's one of those characters that's a little more friendlier. He's not so terrifying like the vampire lords that we have, or so kind of cold or emotionally distant as other characters. He's kind of this warmer character from this this northerly region, Yisval.
He's still a badass killer. Anyway.
Yeah. But we've got what's cool about this is that we've got these awesome motifs that we're playing up in here. Tyler came up with this great holy symbol for the faction, which is this faction is very they have a very close tie to their griffin mounts that they have. So and their dependence on those griffin mounts are kind of what kept them alive when they fled to this northern region in the world that they settled in. And so we've got the griffins that are kind of flanking both sides of this this holy light symbol that also has griffin claw marks going through it. You can see it on that necklace there that Steve came up with. And again, this is another example of Steve playing off of design motifs that came from other artists. In this case, Tyler Walpole. Steve, did you want to talk a little bit about what kind of went into this, dude? And if you don't talk about it, I just put you on the spot, so you have to.
I just switched to inside because I was about to run out of batteries, so I might sound a little bit different. I'm not sure. But a lot of this stuff was established by Tyler. Like, you gave me the one piece that he did and said, we need to develop this specific character for this Viking faction. So I took a lot of the squared off components that Tyler put into the sketch and kind of like rearranged them, just to, I guess, to fit it to my aesthetics and to fit to this character that kind of has to stand out a little bit. So he can't be like the generic form of this armor with the verdigris and the fur cape. It has to be just another step further. But I think the way you described him wasn't like he was. I mean, he still takes action. He's not like a king that, sits in his castle or whatever, or his fort while everyone else does the battle. Like, he still goes out there. So yeah. I couldn't take him that far. So I had to make him look like a higher up, but not that higher up. So it's, again, I'm hitting this, this little nuanced spot where he has to stand out, but still fit in fairly well with, the regular the component of the army here.
Such a hard point that's such a hard aspect to hit that I think a lot of people also don't think about, right? Which is the main character who's not, Darth Vader necessarily, or who isn't, like some huge royalty character or something like that, right? Like, you need a main character that still stands out amongst the common people, even if they're not huge high ranking in the world itself.
That's what I love about Orien, this guy, and Randy. That they're not royalty. They don't need to be royalty to be protagonists.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And what I love about this dude too is that Tyler came up with that cool tabard on the front of him that the paladins in this faction wear, and Steve kind of kicked it up a notch with the way that he had the cut lines come in, so it almost reads like a superhero emblem on the chest, which I super dig.
Yeah.
Like a really cool vibe there without being too over the top.
And it shows just how well you understand our ideas. That someone, a brush guy, mentioned, I can see who could play him in a movie. And I remember I was immediately taken back to when Dan said, you make him like Jason Momoa, but Viking Jason Momoa, burly Jason Momoa. And it shows so much that it sparked the idea,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was your description, Tom. I think later you said Jason Momoa, but your first description of the guy was that he could joke around with like a 5-year-old, like in passing, like just kind of like joke with kids, and then also turn around and cave in skulls.
Yep. And that's
exactly Orien. That's the character concept of Orien.
Yeah, it's great. We got one. I want to show one more from this setting before we get to the Sea Bears with with Vin, which are super cool. Like they're such a super cool creature. But one last thing that I want to show from Yisval, just give everybody a little peek at this guy. This is from Tyler Walpole. He just is working on this right now, so it's not finalized. This is still in process and all, but the design is fairly finalized. These are the Yisval giants that inhabit
excellent
northern reaches up there, and that kind of form an alliance with those paladins that you just saw.
That's great.
So yeah, just such a cool design. Like I love this one. This one is coming out so well. Just such a cool idea on this one. We knew we wanted, Tyler and I knew we wanted those antlers right off the bat. And we wanted those to kind of be a prominent feature in it. And I told Tyler to kind of lean in a little bit on that antlered vibe to make them feel a little bit
so
different.
Beautiful, guys. So beautiful. So
yeah.
This one's like almost all Tyler. All Tyler did, he did such a great job on this. And, like I mentioned, I told him to lean heavy on that antlered look because I wanted to get an anatomy to these guys that, I wanted him to get an anatomy to these guys that doesn't just feel like antlers tacked on a big dude, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So he played around with that. He kind of hunched the shoulders up and he gave him these bigger arms. And then he came up with those awesome, like, practical effect legs. Like you can almost like see like where the green screen suit would be, like on the front of that knee in an El Toro movie. And I love it. Like I love that. And this is like the same vibe that I get from Vin from that hammerhead shark guy, right? Like I love that it like feels like it like you can picture how it moves. You can picture how it would work in a practical way. And I
really like the axe design, how it looks like it was grown. Like they put that blade down and then let those branches grow into the handle. Yeah. Like there's no other way you could make that. So that's really cool. Unexpected.
Yeah. A really cool, unexpected idea on that one.
Like the big blade. No, like it was entwined.
Yeah. The and all that stuff too, that all ties back into the lore as well with these guys. We've got these giants are essentially two different tribes of giants. One of them, the Boar tribe, are more druidic, and they kind of keep to the northern forests and are kind of keepers of sacred groves in those forests and all. And then we have the Wolf tribe, which are kind of the other giant archetype, which is the marauder archetype of the giant. So the Wolf tribe lives on the open tundras, and they're active hunters. And if they come across other settlements, they're not against razing them to the ground and kind of looting them for whatever they need. And these guys right here, this is basically the middle ground between those two tribes. These giants in particular symbolize the meeting of those two tribes. So there's a little bit of that marauder aspect in it. Then it also has that druidic aspect, like you were saying, Vin, with that grown weapon that kind of grows around the forged metal. So, so they're kind of using both of the tribe's aspects at this point in time. So really, really cool stuff from Tyler on this. And I can't wait to show off some more of the stuff that he's working on, because it's awesome. Like it's a really cool faction, and I can't wait to get into it. What time do we got actually? Oh, we're already like
10 minutes we have.
Do we want to pull up the Sea Bears, Vin?
Yeah, I can do that.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Sea Bears, please.
Oh, whoops. Let me do that again.
Those sketches are so good. I love those.
Oh, that's annoying. I have them up in Photoshop, so I have to like do them one by one. Whatever. Okay, so this is the original pencil sketch I did for them. They're just exploring their head design, basically. So you can see I'm kind of like what we've been talking about with all the creature design kind of things, like
the water bear in the corner.
Yeah.
Tardigrade.
Emily, my wife Emily, she's an artist too, but she drew that. She was like, "Hey, here, I'll draw a tardigrade for you." You can see like this one on the top left has a little bit more of a bear like quality, and then some like tusks and things like that. And then the one at the bottom left here, same thing. But then this one there's a little bit of that like elephant seal kind of influence in there, and that gave me a whole different feeling for these characters. Like we've all seen some kind of monstrous bear type character, or even like just a bear with armor, like in the like Narnia movies or Golden Compass or something like that. But something like this, where the there's a little bit of the mammalian aspect. Well, an elephant seal, of course, is a mammalian. So it's like it's got an aquatic, but it also doesn't look like it's totally lives underwater all the time. So there's that aspect to him, and then you can see him exploring some different silhouettes of how they would stand or whatever. I'll show you the other ones now.
These seabirds, they are not experiments from the Sicarians. They are their own tribe. They are a natural people.
Right.
That's important in a concept sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
These were not grown in a lab. These are natural.
Right. These are they aren't like a weird bioengineered creation or anything like that. So here's like one of the warrior like marauder. So you can see like it's fun to add a little touch of color up on that nose area, but everything else keeps kind of neutral. Actually, now I haven't seen these in a while. Like I almost want to add more color to them. But I'll let like when people paint them up, they can do that. So he was a lot of fun because it's a lot of fun to explore like tufty hair, and then contrast that with the leathery skin, and then I'll show you the other one. This guy is like almost like
now we're talking.
That guy's so fun.
Yeah, this guy's like a berserker. I almost imagine him like he would breach like walls or doors.
The rhino helmet
like
is
that.
the coolest.
Right. So and you get to see more of his body, so you can see he's completely like covered in fur, like a polar bear or something like that. And then finally there's the elder, which looks more wise, but less physically strong, but like has more kind of wizard-like qualities to him or her. Like it was fun to take some of the anatomy, like so they have that elephant seal nose, so maybe when they get older that gets way big, and that keeps growing, and the older the sea bear you get, that's
I love what you did with the noses. I hadn't realized it until now.
Yeah, so it's like if you saw one that was even older than this, it would have this like enormous bulbous elephant seal nose. Stuff like adding even more fur, like that keeps growing too. So and then sticking with the undersea theme, like the staff is coral and all the coral colors and things like that. So yeah, they were a ton of fun. Like I haven't worked on anything quite like that.
Yeah, those were like a weird vibe to hit too, because it was like JC was saying, it's not a creature that we can lean that you could lean very far on the chimeric aspects of, because it needed to feel like a species unto itself. But at the same time, it needed to have these things that were kind of evocative of a bear, that kind of were a nod to a bear-like physique.
And belong to the same faction.
Yeah, it's just a really great fun vibe that you hit with these guys, because it was such a tough balancing act with these ones, because like I said before, it needs to be this maritime creature.
It's amazing what Dina did here. It's amazing.
They're really fun stuff. I love that nose is the like that's the cherry on top for me. Like I love that awesome big, giant bulbous elephant seal nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like the power. That's why it's really important if you're anyone in here is like getting into art or is an artist, like doing your due diligence with reference searching, because I know what an elephant seal looks like because I like animals and things like that. So I have that in the back of my mind, but until you actually pull up a picture of one of them, you might not remember exactly how that nose looks. And then as soon as you see that, you'll be like, oh, what if I try that? Like you wouldn't have, if you didn't sit there for a couple hours and go through your reference files or on the internet and find stuff like that, then you're missing out on, finding that little, like that cherry on top kind of thing. So,
yeah, I think that's huge too. I think a lot of people don't realize how much, like you said, like you use the phrase a couple hours. And I don't think that people realize, like, yeah, it's a couple hours. Like, it's like combing over stuff, and it's not looking for like the big fix either, right? Like, it's like, oh, hey, like that claw right there is awesome. Like, I dig that. Like, this nose works really well,
Right.
And finding those right pieces to take that, like Steve was saying, that right percentage then from those right pieces and hook them up in the right way. Yep. It's very much a visual puzzle game, basically.
Yeah, I firmly believe that, like, if you see quote unquote like more derivative designs, like stuff you've seen before, even if it's well done, it's because that artist or that team or whatever it is, we're looking at, just what's been done before and then going from there, like make it look like these elves from WoW or make it look like these creatures from this video game or whatever. Whereas you keep going back to the original source, and then you'll find something more interesting.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point too, because it's almost like designs at a certain point almost come full circle, basically, where everybody starts trying, like you mentioned, a lot of these other companies or other games or things are trying to copy other looks that are popular, right? And by doing that, everything starts playing this game of telephone and getting further and further away from the source material.
Right.
And then when it comes back to that source material, all of a sudden going back to the roots is what makes that fresh feel and that fresh vibe happen.
Right. And you sometimes you want to lean into, like, I want them to feel like this cool thing from my childhood or nostalgia or something. But if you go too far, then it becomes that derivative thing. So it's a real balancing act for artists. And now there's so much media out there that it's even more apparent. I think almost back in like the 80s or even early 90s or something, you just couldn't find everything at a moment's notice. So there was an aspect of like, where is all this coming from? And now you can find everything all the time. Like, so it's kind of crazy.
Well, we have 5 minutes left now, and the boss doesn't want us to leave without you showing off your keyrings.
Yes, let's go ahead and get those. Let's get those
He's
up.
been bringing those up for the last 80 minutes.
I have been. We even had an entire discussion about how to pronounce it, and we still haven't brought them up. All right, let me pull those suckers up. Give me a moment here while I sift through my technology like an old man.
Keyring are for everyone, the Keyring are the mounts of the Elven Knights.
Yeah, these are
Elf Mount Keyring.
some of my favorite designs from Alaria. Just really, really cool stuff.
You don't pull it up fast, I'm showing the fat shark again.
Well, now I have to take my time. We need a name for that guy. Like, he absolutely needs to be a named character in Draco lore. like he's basically like the shark's like equivalent of like, what's his name, the Clone Trooper 99 from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Let's see, where am I at here? All right, we got Kyrens. Here we go.
All right. Now the Ranger.
Yeah, that was so Steve designed these dudes up, and they're
awesome.
Basically a series of Kyrens and their riders, but all of the Kyrens have we basically thought of them like different breeds of horse, essentially, where there's a lot of unifying aspects of them as far as like how the scales and fur are divided up and the overall face structure. But from there, they're basically like show dog breeds where you can get all kinds of craziness from these dudes. So Steve, you want to talk a bit about this dude, and then I can go ahead and scroll on through.
Yeah, that was my favorite part when because I think you handed me either 2 or all 3 of the Kieran that I designed, with like just a vague like how they fit into each one of their corners of the faction. But you wanted them all to look like they're from the same base DNA strand, but they're all their own breeds, just like you're saying with dogs. So that was my favorite like nuanced part to play with. Like it's better to design, for me at least. I have a lot more fun designing a series of things. Like, how do these all relate? How do these vampires like all relate? They look like they're from the same, army in this fantasy setting, but they're all different. They all have a different silhouette. And for these, I kept their legs and kind of how their fur and their scales are mostly patterned, and how they had a long tail with like the tuft in the middle of the tail. I kept that all like the carryover. But then I played with their facial structure, and definitely their horns were the easiest to be. Those are the key, differences between the 3 different Kieran breeds that I made. Like, just play, depending on how they're used. Like, if these rangers are, they're running through forests and through underbrush and stuff, they're not going to have a big elk rack on the top of their heads. They're going to have, something that they can run between trees and stuff. They're going to be more nimble, not get tangled. So, and it's weird how many times I erased and redrew and erased and redrew those horns on there before I got something that felt right. Like, because just giving them little pronghorn horns, like, the antelope out west, that didn't feel right. And, if I added 1 point too many, it felt wrong in the other direction. And it's just the smallest detail. Like, those horns look like they're simple. Like, I just churned that out immediately, but it wasn't. I had to get the feel of those horns just right. And that was the bastard of this drawing. Like, wow, these horns are sticking
on
in
the
my
blade
jaw.
size.
What's that?
You compensated on the blade size.
Yeah. They get the long blade. They get the thing that can get tangled in the shrubs.
That gets tangled on the trees. Like, I can imagine these guys running through a forest, and then the guy's just gone because he got hit by a tree.
Look at that beauty.
That's awesome.
So just on the other end of the spectrum, then there's this really decorative, Kieran, where that's definitely not going to be running through, a small forest, but that one needs to look regal, and that one needs to like stand out. Like, that has to have this crazy silhouette, because that's kind of the leader of I forget what was the rider for this one called, Tom?
I think we used the working
standard bearer.
Warrior rider, I think. Standard bearer or whatever.
Standard bearer, yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Yeah, so that one comes out, like, that one has to be eye-catching. Right. So that fell in a little bit faster than the smaller horns, weirdly, because I knew I could kind of get away with all sorts of different designs as long as the antlers were big and elaborate looking.
It's weird because like so many people think that like the huge designs, like the big shapes and everything, are the ones that come the hardest, and it's usually the opposite. Like you're saying, it's usually the opposite. Like the simpler designs, like the horns, like you said, like it takes forever to come up with some like simple but iconic and beautiful shape like that. Like that S curve that you have to them, and that little heart shape in the middle, like so well done. But so much fine tuning to get that, and like these, it's just like go full out.
Yep. Yeah.
Then we got one more.
They're both challenging in their own way.
Whoa!
And then there's the heavy cavalry.
I never seen this one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this
that
one's
was
awesome.
The first one. That, like, when we were talking earlier, Vinod, about how you lassoed different parts and just changed all the proportion and mushed around. I did that like crazy with that one because this was the first of the Kieran that I drew. And when I scanned it in, I just didn't like almost anything. I liked, like, on paper, like, oh, the long tail and the snarling face, but I like recomposed this massively in Photoshop. Even though I was working with pencil lines, it's probably like 70% digital, just me like mushing stuff and changing the tilt of the head and making the limbs longer, but also bulky on the feet. Like that was a process in itself, just finding the right feel for what heavy cavalry would look like on these creatures.
I like the dog influence on the mouth. Like, we've seen dogs that have the loose jowly lips, and
Yep.
like it makes him look way scarier than the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
These are gorgeous.
those. I mean, like I said, when I was looking at a reference for Kieran, there is and there isn't like a wide variety. They kind of boil down to a deer mixed with a horse, mixed with a dragon, or something like that. But there are a lot that had really doggy faces, and so I wanted to push it away from deer and push it away from horse look, and kind of give them a little bit more of a dog, something that might have a little bit more intelligence or character expression, I think.
Yeah, and it works great. Like it's a fantastic design. Like Vin was saying, that mouth is one of the first aspects that when you look at that face, it pops out to me, because it's so, there's so much character in it, and it's so going back to that word that we used before, so believable. You see that and you're like, yeah, I've seen that before. Like I've seen that little droop to the corner of the mouth, and the way the gums go up to the tinier teeth. Like you've seen that. Like I
instinctively understand how that would work.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And yeah, it's that believability that really makes all these designs stand out, because they're fantastic, but they don't suspend your belief to the level where you can't buy into them as actual creatures. Each and every single one of these feel like actual creatures that can move and interact with their environments in their own right. And I think that's one of the things that makes these designs and this entire line really so successful. And it's because
as Maria is saying on the comments, it's amazing how it's apparent they all belong to the same species, but there are different breeds. There are widely different breeds of clearly the same species that we have no reference for.
Right.
Yeah, and it's that middle ground, and that common ground that they're all standing on, that really binds them together and makes it feel like a cohesive universe. Like everything isn't so piecemeal and all over the place. There's unique shapes going on, but then there's commonality there as well that runs through and kind of forms its own world. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we're on stolen time already, so however you wanna continue or end this.
All right. Well, I guess are there any questions in the chat before we wrap it up?
No new questions. No.
All right. Well,
I
think
that's the end. That's the end.
Pam is asking for you to show up Aelen of the Standard. The Kirin Warden with the great banner, with the great flag.
Yeah, you want to show that guy really quick? I can show him really quick. Let me pull up the Warden with the banner really fast. We can end on the rider for that Royal Kirin. It's
a hare. Daniel Early says she's a hare.
Yeah. She's super cool. This is such a fun design. This is the design that broke everybody that I had to commission to do this design after Steve created it. So
the sculptor killer.
Yeah, Pam had trouble locking down sculptors for this. I had to like assure Scott Murphy that it would be okay and everything will be fine and he can paint this just great. Like this dude, like she pretty much wow. Like I'm pretty sure that she went, like Scott went through like 200 brushes just to capture all the filigree on this.
That's funny.
Can you zoom in on her? Yeah, there you go.
That's great.
Yeah, just an awesome concept. And this model is just crazy. I don't know if it's been revealed or unlocked yet for the Kickstarter, but this sculpt is sculpted and it's fantastic. It's an awesome sculpture.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, it's on the campaign page. Yep, I just got word that it's on the campaign page. So if you guys want to see the model, go check out the Kickstarter, because you can see her on that huge Kirin with the big branching antler horns that Steve came up with that crazy banner sculpted up too.
We didn't talk about the elf, how another like subtle thing that we wanted to do differently than all other elves is actually put armor over their ears.
Yeah.
We everyone, you put helmets on elves and you see their ears are sticking out because you have to show that they're elves, so have their ears sticking out in battle. And we were like, what if they just had accented armor plates over their ears? Like, why don't we just do that? It'll look like humans, but it'll be different at least.
Yeah, and it works so well too. It's especially with like the motifs that you were running with a lot of those Eastern armor themes and everything from Asian cultures, where you have those there's a lot of helmets that have those flaps that kind of come down over the ears and kind of buckle up in the front and everything, like this exactly. But taking that flap and instead of extending it down, just giving it that up kick keeps the same flavor and everything to it, and sells it as an elf, which is awesome.
Yeah, they say that they're asking, they're starting a petition for the bulky shark from the bulky shark sketch. You know, Bruce Almighty the shark as a unit variant, as a new unit, as a new.
We're gonna have our awesome little beefcake shark as a variant character in the setting.
Yeah.
The Mad Ball, he's like a Mad Ball. Remember those Mad Ball toys?
He's going to be called
Mad Ball
La Chacos the Little Legged.
Yeah.
I love it.
I saw some of this stuff when Tom showed me what Steve had been working on, but I hadn't seen all of it, and it's really inspiring. Like, when we get more stuff to work on, like seeing the breadth of work that's been done for this project. It's like, okay, now, like next time I get an order from you guys, it's like I'm gonna have even more stuff to live up to, which is really inspiring. I love it.
Dude, you haven't even seen the one that Tom and I worked on the last. Well, Tom, you were hinting that you might drop it, but I'm assuming
I think we're gonna save him. I think because that campaign's a little ways off, so we're gonna save him. But there's a campaign that's a ways off down the way. That's called the Hollow Depths, and it's basically this crazy subterranean Hollow Earth kind of realm on this world. So a little bit of Underdark flavor to it, but a lot of like 50s pulp Hollow Earth kind of vibe to it.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
So it's basically like a reimagining of the Underdark through a pulp lens, which is kind of fun. But there's a lot of these crazy demon lords down there that are being concepted up right now. We've got Jason Engel working on them, Eric E.M. Gist working on them, and Philippe Berberin working on them as well. But Steve tackled this really rad, and you'll see him later. So make sure you're following Draco's stuff and development, because these guys are awesome. This awesome kind of crime lord, mind-eating toad monster. With these mindless thralls that carry him around on this giant palanquin.
So much of it was your idea, because I think you kept like rewriting it. Like you come back to me like a week later, like I had this idea, blah blah blah, and I'm like, all right, let's do that too.
It easily went from like it was this idea that went from basically like a blister pack figure to like a full box set, more or less. Whereas, Steve, so instead of having just one toad guy, how about we have 20 slaves that are mindless carrying him too? That's cool, right? You have no problem adding that to your workload. Yeah, there was always something crazy kind of upping the bar with that guy. But yeah, those guys will be revealed down the way. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to look forward to, and a lot of cool stuff on the horizon that's being put together right now too. So thank you, Steve and Vin, for contributing to it, and for continuing to contribute, because it's it's you guys that are kind of bringing this world together and creating the awesome place that we have here.
Hey, I appreciate getting the work from you and Draco. Like it's been so much fun. It's been the perfect amount of wide open for injecting all the creativity we have. So
for me it's like a creative break from more kind of technical kind of stuff that happens in video game stuff. Video game work. So yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you all for giving me the honor of sharing a panel with such geniuses here.
Well,
I'll take it.
For hosting
us
and for chilling with us.
I don't think any geniuses have a stupid shark background, so I don't know about that.
Geniuses get to do whatever they want.
Oh, that's true.
Especially artist genius. Like you can just be like, artist genius. I'm weird.
Yeah.
Well, after what I've just seen, the art pieces that I knew and the art pieces I didn't know, this I have no doubt I'm at least working with very gifted people.
Okay, that's good.
And as Dan said, the art drop, Tom's weekly art drop in our in our chats is like the highlight of our work week.
Yeah, it's the highlight of my week too, because it's everything coming together and being able to share it with you guys and sort of bridging the two teams. The art team and the writing team, the dev guys over at Draco. So it's really an honor to be able to work with people on both sides here, the artist and the Draco team. Yeah, and I look forward to kind of creating more stuff with everybody.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, then I think that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed the sneak peek and the ramblings and my failure to use apps correctly.
And the pantomimes.
Yeah, and the pantomimes. There's a lot of pantomime always with me.
A lot of pantomiming.
There is. Just hand motions.
Hey, take care, everybody.
All right.